there is a new study that was out in Vice that found, I think they surveyed 274 adolescents. And this wasn't like a Vice study, but like they covered it. This was University of Cambridge, University College London, King's College London.
Okay.
Um, they studied 274 adolescents and adults who had used cannabis at least once weekly, with an average of 4 days a week over the past 3 months, and a group of people who did not use cannabis matched for age and gender. In order to measure apathy and anhedonia, participants ranked statements like how much they enjoy being with family and friends, how much they are in learning, how interested they are in learning new things, and how likely they are to see a job through to the end. So it's kind of trying to gauge whether weed makes stoner like whether weed makes people lazy, and whether
Yeah.
people who consume a lot of weed, so-called stoners, are truly lazy just based on their
And like
self-reported
unproductive in
characteristics.
society also.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is that whole stereotype that, oh, the lazy, unmotivated stoners and they don't want to do anything. And so, unmotivation or the lack of motivation, and unmotivation isn't a word, I don't think. But the lack of motivation is, that's apathy. And that's a sign of depression. And I don't think the people who smoke regularly are necessarily depressed, right? That's not like a thing that we doesn't make you sad necessarily. Um,
Necessarily.
yeah, so a lot of the people in the comments I saw, well, so the people who took the survey, they were sober when they took it, and it was just like a self-assessment. So it's not like, as far as from what I saw, I don't know like how much more scientific you can get with something like that because I'm not a scientist, but it was more like a polling situation. So some people in the comment section when I first saw this, they were like, "Oh, it doesn't really matter. People can say that they're not, but they're blah 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 blah." But the thing is, so many people smoke weed regularly, and these people have jobs and they have good jobs. One guy in the comments, he was saying that, my stoner friends, they have jobs, but they're just not very good ones. And it's like, according to who? Are they happy? Are they making a living for themselves? Are they doing okay? Or is it just not a good job because you don't like their job? It's very strange because at the end of the day, they're still being a productive member of society, and that's kind of the stereotype that this study is trying to disprove, that stoners are lazy and they don't contribute to society. And we all know that that is simply not true, and that's just like some, Nixon era propaganda or something like that.
It's 100% not true. Exhibit A, me. I'm
I
running
would
the show,
say
and I
you
just
like you on your own can like disprove that whole thing.
yeah. Exhibit B, Jesus Raphael, who says, I get baked because I'm a workaholic in
Yeah,
YouTube
yeah,
chat right now. 100% agreed.
yeah, absolutely. Like whenever you're done working, you don't want to think about anything else. Do what you got to do. It doesn't matter. Like as long as you can kind of just get your own stuff done. You still have to be a responsible adult. So you know what your own limits are. It's just like drinking. People are alcoholics and they're not working, or
Yeah.
they're not necessarily contributing to society in a meaningful way. So you got to know your limits with anything. If you eat too much sugar, that's bad for you. That's probably worse for you if you eat too much sugar.
Yeah. So getting into
Well,
some of the results, researchers found that people who used cannabis did not report greater apathy or anhedonia compared to people who did not use cannabis. In fact, the people who used cannabis scored slightly lower on anhedonia than those who did not,
yeah.
suggesting that the former are better able to enjoy themselves in the mentioned activities than the latter. According to the authors of the study, this may be because people who tend to seek out pleasure are also more likely to use cannabis, but the authors also warned the difference they found was small and should be interpreted with caution. So it's not to say that
Yeah.
like people with weed have more fun, but there might be like a correlation does not necessarily equal causation here kind of deal.
Yeah, I always thought that was like a weird thing too, that somehow people who smoke weed are supposed to just like be sadder more. Like I don't know because I feel like it can really go a lot of different ways. Like
Exactly.
I mean yeah, it's hard because I'm trying not to generalize people's experiences with certain things, but I guess I'll just talk from my own experience. It makes me more creative and it makes me more, like I have a lot of notes in my phone of things that I thought of when I was high, and they're very interesting to look back on. And it's only been demonized within the last several decades, right? Before everybody was doing it. So if you look back at like all these musicians that we love from the 60s and before, and even writers from like the 1700s, all the founding fathers, they're all smoking it, all these things were done with people smoking weed just throughout all of human history up until several decades ago. So the world can and does go on. It's fine. People can have their vices and also still get done the shit that they need to get done. That's it. We're all adults.
Exactly. Um, and I think this should overall go towards fighting the stigma around cannabis usage, that you don't need to put people in prison, or, as like Ron DeSantis is talking about, just like continue to ban it outright in Florida. You don't need to
Yeah.
continually criminalize it. You should at bare minimum decriminalize it, and you should, in theory, if Democrats had any sort of like gall and willingness to get better politically and expand their voter base, they would make a actual path, not like a bullshit thing that California did, but an actual path to where people who were most harmed by the war on drugs, who were incarcerated for having small amounts of cannabis or selling cannabis, can now get a path towards getting their life back together in a legal cannabis market that is taxed in a way that benefits society, but not in a way that allows the illegal market to just thrive around it.
Yeah, there's so many reasons. Like, I think I just did a recent video on this too for Rebel HQ about cannabis, and it's hard whenever I do videos like that because I feel like I take it personally and I get very soapboxy, but that's the thing, is that's the experience with so many people. It's literally a plant, and I think just the idea of making a plant illegal, like in my backyard right now, I have two hemp plants and they just grow naturally. They're technically weeds, but I like them, so I keep them. But they're just huge and they grow so fast. It's ridiculous. Like, do you know how long it takes for trees to grow? But these hemp plants are just in my backyard and they're thriving and we do nothing with them. Like we didn't plant them. They just showed up and they're huge now. Hemp is such a great product, you know? It was one of the major cash crops in this country before we just decided to no longer use it because it was like kind of too close to weed, to cannabis. So it like there's so much stuff about it that doesn't make any sense. Like things that we do, things that we don't need to do, but we just insist on still living this way for no reason. It's very inefficient and that bothers me. I don't like how inefficient all of everything that we do is.
Left of the Box in chat, check out their YouTube channel, youtube.com/left of the box, by the way, says, I need to start smoking weed. There's 3 cannabis stores within walking distance to me. The weed in Canada, I almost said the weed in Canada, semi on purpose, semi on accident. Weed in Canada is really good, very underrated. At least it was in Vancouver, so don't sleep on that. I know you're not in Vancouver necessarily, but I would hope it's good there. That seems to be a solid climate for it. But yeah, I also, overall in this conversation, if cannabis is not for you, don't feel the need to like make it for you. Obviously,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who are sober, or like sober but for cigarettes and cannabis, and whatever works for you in life in general is kind of my motto, and I think that should, as leftists, that's we should live. That is what we should live by.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think it's ever been about forcing anything on people, but it's about just letting people have what they want, and it's not hurting anybody. That's the important thing. It's not hurting anybody, but it is hurting a lot of industries, right? Well, I mean, like hemp, and I don't want to give it more credit than it deserves, but it really could upend certain industries like the oil and gas industry. Maybe not upend it, like maybe that's a stretch, but we definitely could have a lot of products that would replace things that we typically get that are made out of plastics, right? And we could replace like polyester and synthetic fabrics and things like that. All these things that are just filling up landfills everywhere, and we have nowhere for it to go. And it's just like all this fast fashion, all this like old Tupperware and like disposable whatever things that we told ourselves are disposable, and they're literally just not. But hemp products could replace a lot of that. We could build homes with hemp. It could be used for to absorb like floodwaters and things like that. But we just said we're not allowed to use it anymore just because it's kind of too close to cannabis. And I don't know, like it just doesn't make any sense. But
It
whatever.
absolutely doesn't make any sense.
And it grows so fast. We could have it for paper and it wouldn't even be a thing.
You know, based on, I totally forget, you do know a lot about this stuff. I'm going to very soon invite one of my friends who is a streamer who talks a lot about cannabis, like on to a Power Report episode. Would you want to
Yeah.
join on for that one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like absolutely no pressure, but I think that would
It's
just
so
be
funny
fun.
because like I was like such an advocate for cannabis before I even tried it. Like I never tried it until maybe right before I was 30, like so just a few years ago. But before that, I was like advocating for it and like I knew so much about this stuff. And then I was like, I feel like I should at least try it so I know what I'm talking about. And here we are today.
And you're in Texas. You're in Delta 8 land. So that's not even like you know the real. But it's okay.
I, yeah, yeah, it's a struggle. It's a struggle, but I travel a lot, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. We come out to California.
Yeah.
Also, first time chatter, K Pink 425. Good to see you. Welcome. Good to have you here.